At some point, water started getting talked about like it was not enough, not dangerous, not useless, just somehow incomplete. You walk into a store now, or scroll past a morning routine online, and there it is. A bright little packet, a tall glass, a promise that this is not just water anymore. This is smarter water, faster water, water with a plan. And if you use one of those packets every day, it can quietly turn into a $30, $40, even $60 a month habit. For some people, that may be worth it. But for many people, I think the better question is this: when did ordinary hydration become something we were taught to doubt? I'm Sophia River, and this is Old World Remedies, where we look at the forgotten household ways that still make sense today. And today, we're talking about what people used before electrolyte packets took over. Not because electrolytes are fake. They are not. But because a real tool has been stretched into something much bigger. A daily lifestyle product for people who may not need it every day at all. So let's be fair, right from the start. Electrolytes are real. Your body needs them. Sodium, potassium, chloride, magnesium, calcium. These are not marketing inventions. They help your body manage fluid balance, contract muscles, and send signals properly. And when you lose too much fluid, especially through vomiting, diarrhea, heavy sweating, or long hours in the heat, electrolytes can matter a lot. In some situations, they are not just useful. They are serious medicine. Oral rehydration solution, or ORS, is one of the clearest examples. A carefully balanced mix of water, salt, sugar, and minerals can help the body absorb fluid during diarrheal illness. That simple idea has helped save millions of lives, especially children. So this is not an anti-electrolyte video, it is a context video. Because the same basic science that belongs in emergency medicine, endurance sports, and hot weather labor has now been pulled into the everyday wellness aisle. And that is where the story gets interesting. There are days when a packet earns its place. After a stomach bug. During a long run in the heat. On a job site in summer. After hours of heavy sweating. Or when a doctor has specifically told someone to use electrolytes. Those are real situations. But they are not the same as a desk day, a short walk, a mild afternoon slump, or a glass of water that simply feels too plain because a label told you it was. That is the line the market likes to blur. The smartest thing this category does is not add electrolytes to water. It adds doubt to water. Plain water starts to look old-fashioned. Regular meals start to look inadequate. A pinch of salt in food, a bowl of soup, a potato, a banana, a glass of lemonade on a hot day. All of that starts to feel too simple. And once you believe water is no longer enough, the packet has already won. You see the language everywhere. Hydration multiplier, cellular hydration, more efficient than water, doctor formulated, used by athletes, travel essential, hangover recovery, daily hydration. The words are clever because they take real situations and stretch them into ordinary life. Yes, if you are truly dehydrated, sodium and glucose can help the body absorb water more effectively. Yes, if you are sweating for a long time, you may need to replace salt. Yes, if you are vomiting or dealing with diarrhea, plain water may not be enough. But if you are sitting in air conditioning, eating normal meals, and answering emails, your body is probably not begging for a premium packet every morning. It may just need water. And food. And maybe a little less fear around both. There is another part people rarely think about. Many Americans already eat more sodium than recommended, mostly from everyday packaged and restaurant foods. So when a packet adds several hundred milligrams of sodium, or sometimes much more, that may be useful in the right context. But it is not automatically harmless as a daily habit for everyone, especially if someone has high blood pressure, kidney disease, heart failure, or is taking medications that affect fluid or potassium balance. This is one of those places where more does not always mean better. I find it helpful to separate three very different situations. First, illness. If someone has been vomiting, dealing with diarrhea, or getting weak from dehydration, that is not a lifestyle moment. That is when proper rehydration actually matters. Second, real physical stress. A long run, a hot work day, a hike, a shift outdoors in summer, a day where you are sweating for hours and losing salt along with water. And then there is ordinary life. Sitting at a desk, taking a short walk, going through a normal morning, feeling tired and hoping one packet will make the whole day feel different. Those situations are not the same, but modern marketing often makes them feel like they are. That is how a product designed for real fluid loss ends up next to your laptop, your coffee, and your morning to-do list. And when that happens, the question changes. It is no longer, do electrolytes work? Of course they do, in the right situation. The better question is, what situation am I actually in? Because if you read enough reviews and forum comments, you start hearing the same uncertainty. Some people love these products. They say they help after a hard workout, during travel, after illness, or when they have a specific medical reason to use them. Others are less sure. They say the taste is too salty, or too sweet, or that the packets upset their stomach, or that they don't feel any different unless they were already sweating hard. Some people start asking why they are paying more than $1 for what feels like flavored salt water. That does not prove the products are bad, but it does show what the category is really selling. A lot of people are not just buying electrolytes, they are buying reassurance that their body is being optimized. They are buying the feeling that plain water is no longer doing enough. They are buying a little packet that seems to say, don't worry, this version is better. So let's set the bright packet down for a moment, and let's go back to an older American kitchen. Long before anyone said hydration multiplier, American farm workers had a drink called switchel. Some people called it haymaker's punch. Picture a hot field in summer. Men cutting hay under a hard sun. Dust on their sleeves. Sweat running down the back of their necks. A jug waiting in the shade. Inside that jug was usually water, vinegar, ginger, and a sweetener like molasses, maple syrup, or sugar. Sometimes there was a pinch of salt. It was sharp, sweet, a little spicy, and meant to be drunk cold. A simple version might look like this. About a quart of water, a few spoonfuls of apple cider vinegar, a spoonful or two of molasses or honey, a little ginger, and maybe a small pinch of salt. Mixed together, cooled down, carried outside. It was simple, cheap, and it made sense in the heat. Was it a modern sports drink? No. Was it the same as medical ORS? Absolutely not, but it was a working drink for working bodies. It gave people fluid, it gave them some sugar, it gave them flavor, a reason to keep drinking, and sometimes a little salt. Most importantly, it belonged to a real context. Heat, labor, sweat, and long hours outside. That is what modern marketing often strips away. Context. Switchel was not something you drank because someone online told you water was outdated. It was something field workers drank because the day was hot and the work was real. And that difference matters. The old household did not always have perfect science, but it often had better common sense about when a special drink was actually needed. Now let's move from the field to the sick room. If you grew up in an American home, or even just watched old family life closely, you probably know this scene. A child in bed with a fever. A glass of water on the side table. A bowl of warm chicken broth, maybe with a pinch of salt. A few saltines on a plate. Maybe weak tea with honey. Maybe diluted lemonade or apple juice, something mild enough to sip slowly. A parent walking in quietly, checking the forehead, asking, "Can you take a few more sips?" This was not a perfect medical formula. And I want to be very clear about that. If someone is seriously dehydrated, especially a child, that is a medical situation. Proper ORS and medical guidance matter. But for mild illness, household care had its own logic. Broth brought warm fluid and salt. Saltines were simple and easy to tolerate. A little sugar in a drink could help someone keep sipping. Soup gave the body water, sodium, and some food without demanding much digestion. That is not the same as a modern rehydration solution. But it is easy to see the old pattern. Fluid, salt, a little energy, and someone paying attention. And in a way, that last part may be the hardest thing for the packet to copy. A packet can give you sodium. It cannot notice that you look pale. It cannot sit on the edge of the bed and say, "Try another sip." It cannot turn hydration into care. The third old answer was even simpler. Food and water at the table. Most of the time, electrolytes were not something people thought about. They were just in the meal. Potatoes brought potassium. Beans brought minerals. Soups brought water and salt. Pickles brought brine. Salted vegetables and meats brought sodium. Sometimes too much, but often enough for people doing physical work. Milk, fruit, greens, broth, bread with butter and salt, all of these belong to ordinary meals. Nobody called it an electrolyte strategy. It was just dinner. And that is one of the strangest things about the modern category. It trains people to look for electrolytes in a packet first, instead of noticing that food has been carrying them all along. A normal meal does not look like a hydration protocol. But on most ordinary days, it is exactly where your electrolytes are supposed to come from. If you eat a salty meal and drink water, you are already doing something electrolyte-related. If you have soup for lunch, you are already doing something electrolyte-related. If you eat a baked potato, fruit, beans, greens, or yogurt, your body is already receiving minerals in the old, unbranded way. The packet did not invent this. It just made it measurable, flavored, portable, and easy to sell. And to be fair, that convenience can be useful. I do not want to pretend that every older method was better. A foil packet in a backpack can be a very good thing. If you are traveling, hiking, sick, working in heat, or caring for someone who needs quick rehydration, convenience matters. But convenience is not the same as necessity. And that is where the modern shelf gets tricky. You start with a real tool. Then you add bright packaging. Then you add a subscription. Then you add language that makes everyday thirst sound like a deficiency state. And before long, people are treating water like an unfinished product. This is why water alone is not enough is such a powerful idea. It does not have to be shouted. It just has to be implied. When every bottle, packet, and sponsored video says, "Hydrate better," plain water begins to feel like the cheap version of something your body deserves. But the truth is more boring and more useful. Water is enough for many ordinary days. Water is not enough for every situation. The useful part is learning to tell the difference. And older household logic can help us do that, not because it was perfect, but because it stayed closer to the situation. On a regular day, people drank water with meals. On a hot work day, they might bring something stronger: switchel, lemonade, tea, salted food, or a canteen and a lunch pail. During mild illness, there might be broth, soup, crackers, and small sips. During serious illness, today we should be grateful we have proper ORS and medical care. The point is not that old recipes were magic. The point is that different days called for different tools. That is the judgment I want to bring back. The ability to pause before opening the packet and ask, what kind of day is this? If it was a normal day, water and food may already be enough. If it was a sweaty day, a sick day, or a long outdoor day, the answer may be different. And if your doctor has already given you specific advice, that advice matters more than a label on a box. Once you ask the question that way, the packet stops being good or bad. It becomes a tool. And tools belong in the right context. So here is a simple way to think about it. If you have been vomiting or dealing with diarrhea, especially if someone is weak, very young, older, or not keeping fluids down, do not play games with wellness powders. Use proper rehydration guidance and get medical help when needed. If you are exercising hard for more than an hour, sweating heavily, working outside in heat, or doing endurance events, electrolytes may make sense. If your clinician told you to use them, follow that advice. If you are on a special diet, fasting, or managing a condition where salt and fluids are part of the plan, then your situation is not generic. Treat it that way. But if you are just sitting at a desk, walking around the neighborhood, doing a light workout, or trying to feel more optimized, start simpler. Drink water. Eat a real meal. Add salt to food if your diet and health allow it. Have soup. Have fruit. Have potatoes, beans, greens, yogurt, or a normal lunch. Notice whether you are actually dehydrated or just tired. Because fatigue is not always an electrolyte problem. A headache is not always an electrolyte problem. Brain fog is not always an electrolyte problem. Sometimes the answer is sleep. Sometimes it is stress. Sometimes it is too much alcohol. Sometimes it is too much caffeine and not enough food. Sometimes it is just a long day. And no packet can diagnose that for you. That is probably the most important point in this whole episode. Electrolyte packets are not the enemy, but they should not become the first answer to every vague bad feeling. Before hydration came in bright little packets, it lived in pitchers on the porch, soup pots on the stove, salt shakers on the table, and jugs carried into fields. It was there in switchel after hard work, in broth during sickness, in potatoes and pickles and soup, in water that no one had to make feel premium. And maybe that is what we lost. Not the minerals themselves, but the sense of proportion. So here is my challenge for you this week. Before you open the next packet, ask what kind of day you actually had. If it was heat, sweat, illness, a long run, or a real medical reason, then maybe the packet earns its place. But if it was an ordinary day, with ordinary thirst, ordinary meals, and ordinary tiredness, maybe water and food were already doing their quiet work. You may still decide the packet has a place in your life, and sometimes it absolutely might. But at least then you will be choosing it with clearer eyes and with a little less marketing noise in the glass. Try one day this week without automatically reaching for the packet. Drink water. Eat real food. Notice what your body was actually asking for. And I'd love to know what this looked like in your family. Was it lemonade on the porch? Broth when someone was sick? A thermos on a hot work day? Or something else entirely? If this reminded you of an old summer drink, a sick day food, or a household habit that suddenly makes more sense now, tell me in the comments. I really do read them. And if you enjoy these honest, thoughtful looks at old household wisdom versus modern trends, hit subscribe. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.